here today with another one of our newest Arizona drag racing legends, Johnny West. Johnny's also in the Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And a lot of accolades over the years, and I'm sure that his trophy case is a spectacular thing to see, but we're not going to see it. We're going to see him instead.
Yeah.
Get the story. Welcome, Johnny. It's good to have you here.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
We like to get to know people, and you have a very visible life, and a lot of people know you, but we're not trying to find out the dirty secrets of your life, but we want to find out how you got started. I mean, when did you first know? How long have you been in Arizona?
I came here in 1954.
Okay.
I was born in Mesa, and we migrated all the way to Chandler.
Wow. And that was a big. There was
Yeah.
actually two different cities back
Oh yeah, it was a big migration, wagon wheels, and
yeah, wagons west or east or whatever. So, how did you as a kid? You obviously, first mechanically inclined as I know that you are. You probably had played with bicycles, and you probably did Lincoln Logs, and you probably did the Rector set. You probably did all the stuff mechanical as a kid. But what was your deal? How did you get hooked into cars?
just basically through my older brother. Get to go and hang out with him, and I was always Jim's little brother, and get to go to the drags. And even back then, which is a crime that doesn't get to happen today, but here it is, and I'm 8, 9 years old, and we'd go out to the races. I'd get out of the car, and that'd be the end of it until dark. They wouldn't see or hear from me until then. I was just going and hanging out. Obviously, where the sportsman pits were, that wasn't it. It was always in the hot car pits where the dragsters were. They didn't have funny cars back then. So go and hang out where the dragsters are. That's where life begins, right there.
So you kind of like a bird on the fence and watched a lot of stuff and took a lot of things in, and
just hanging out and just absorbing it all, just being a sponge.
So other than your brother Jim, who else mentored you? I mean, there had to be along the way a few people that I would think that you said this I can learn from this person.
Yeah, well, just being around those guys back then, let alone with Alleman, that was always somebody you always wanted to impress. Him, and then when I went to work there at Dynamic, those two guys were the two people that I tried to tailor my whole life after. I mean, that's what you want to do, is if you can impress those two guys, you've done what you need to do. But Stewart, Chauvin, and Alleman, they were the mainstays of my whole livelihood.
How did you? Dynamic Machine is well known for this fantastic stuff coming out of it. All the people that work there, it's kind of like the Chuck Speed Center, but in the machine shop side, in the machinists and the.
That was probably one of the biggest rules that Stewart had, was that you have to put in your 8 hours first, and then you can stay here and work as late as you want on your own junk, building your race cars. But that was one of the rules, is that you couldn't buy anything that we can build. If we can make it, you have to make it. You can't buy it. And that, to Stewart, that taught everybody how to be a better machinist on your own time, instead of him trying to teach you. And everybody that worked there that was a drag racer or any kind of a racer, that's how you knew how to build stuff on your own.
In so much early drag racing, there wasn't a ton of speed shops, prior, in the early days, and people had to learn how to build their parts, and that was a continuation of that if you knew how to build it, you know how to make it better. It had to be fantastic. A lot of the people you worked with there, and the people that came after you over the years.
Yeah, well, Stewart didn't much go to the races with us then, and let alone with him. Our shop foreman, the guy that was basically in charge of the whole shop, Niver, he was the one that you'd go to for the answers on how to make something. He never was without an answer that couldn't help figure it out. So with guys like him there at Dynamic, that's what helped fix everything for you in drag racing.
So the logic you learned in the thinking process to think things out, not only in the machining, but just as far as how to attack
any kind of a problem like that. But between those guys, and then actually when the shop went to Chicago and was looking at CNC machines. Back then it was only NCs, but looking at CNCs, that was still the new thing to come. We all thought, nah, this is just going to be a fad. The CNCs will never survive in the machine shop industry. But then to do all the programming, that all had to be done longhand between Stuart and Mark. That's pretty much where you learned all your math, all the trig. You had to do that to be able to survive and operate these things.
So all the things they tried to teach you in high school in the math class,
that
all of a sudden it was like...
Didn't make sense then, but now...
I wish I would have listened a little bit more.
Well, just learning how to do it longhand, that's what taught you how to be able to figure out stuff.
So you're working at the premier racer machine shop in Arizona, hands down. Well known. You're working for some awesome people. You're racing. How did you? What was your first? You raced with your brother, and when did you say I want my own car?
I think when I went to work at Dynamic, I had my own. It was an injected fuel car, okay. Altered.
And what was that? What was the name of that car? Was that the?
It was just my name on the side of it. Okay. Yeah. That
was before you got fancy.
Yeah, well, and still racing that, and then going to some of the match races against the blown fuel altereds. We went to half a dozen of those at the county and out here at Firebird, or Beeline rather. They just didn't like it at all. Having an injected car beat them. That just, because those cars then were just, it was lucky to make a run. So, just evolution brought you up through time. Put a blower on it, put more fuel in it, different chassis. Now we can start building our own cars back then. But there again, at Dynamic, you had to be able to build your own chassis. Back then it's what they called SEMA, and you had to be licensed through SEMA to build a car.
Right.
So that's what helped, being able to build a car like that as opposed to buying one off the street or from a factory. It was money ahead for us.
And you knew the car, you could do the changes you wanted and create.
Yeah, there wasn't so much as changes you wanted. You just built it out of survival.
Okay.
To build a complete race car and tubing, you'd have about $1,500 as opposed to 30 grand. Well, let's just do the math here. I think I'll go that way. Instead of buying the first aluminum block that I had money for, I bought a Heliarc. But there again, at Dynamic, they taught you how to weld.
Your first nitro pass. Do you remember?
No, not really. It was, it had to be in the fuel altered, and it was mid 7-second runs. But it was all an evolution because you're going from fuel altered, injected just a little bit quicker, had put a blower on it and alcohol, and I said, no, this alcohol ain't gonna work. So let's put fuel in it, and they were basically 7-second runs. So it wasn't a shock to your system because your evolution, you were clipping off 3 or 4 hundredths, 5/10ths at a time. So it wasn't a shock to your system.
So you progressed.
Yeah.
A progression to it. You started racing fuel altered and
went to funny car. Yeah. I never did really like dragsters. I drove Finley's car for a little bit, but no, that just wasn't it. Funny cars, you had the opportunity to survive and make more money with it and do match racing, and then go to the national events. And one of the years that we raced back east or everywhere, we raced 38 times that year through match racing and national events with the funny car.
And it helped. It was sustainable with the expenses and.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We made it make its own money. There was a couple of times where guys would, an investment group would get involved with the car, but basically it was whatever we made at the track is what we survived on.
Good times.
Survival.
Okay.
After a while it just got to be more of a grind. You'd race Englishtown, go to Epping, unload the car, and it's still warm. For the next race, and race on a Wednesday night, and then travel and be there Thursday morning to service the car to get ready for a Friday run.
And so, in all this, the Arizona boy in yours going, I'm a long way from home.
Oh yeah.
And how did I get this far out here?
Yeah, well, yeah, and worried about diesel. You know, how are you going to make payroll? You know, when we had our little hiccup in Englishtown, that brought me to earth. That made me realize there's a little bit more to life than in the next run. To make, you know, you got home. I spent about a week in the hospital, kind of busted up a little bit, and got home, flew home. The doctor told me, you know, if you feel like you're ready enough to get out of bed and go home, get up and walk. And I rolled right out. This was after the 2 days or something, and I jumped up out of bed and went right down to the floor.
You weren't ready.
Yeah. He says, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll do this again. You know, so, and got home and realized I just need to get my life in order here. You know, why didn't I die in that run? There was 3 things that should have happened. It should have killed me. Why? I don't know. There's another purpose here now. So you need to grow up and figure out what's happening.
How old were you at this time?
That was mid-90s.
Okay.
Yeah, the mid-90s. So, you know, you just get home and you just got to rebuild your life.
So, at what point, you know, you had your own cars, you ran your cars, a lot of match racing. You were synonymous with any type of big fuel event here in Phoenix. You know, your name, you were, or your brother would be a big part of that. You owned your own cars. When did you decide that the path might be do it for somebody else's on somebody else's time?
Well, you know, I went to work for Roland in '85 for 3.5 years, and actually McEwen was instrumental in that. He says, you know, you need to take a look at this guy. There's not much that he can't do on the car. And so then, as driver for Roland, then, you know, you do the clutch and pull the cylinder head and still drive the car and drive the tractor trailer rig around. That was pretty big monetarily for me. We went to Hawaii, my first match race with him, you know, and I couldn't believe it. He handed me a check after the race. It was like $1,800. It's like, wait a second. I haven't had to put a penny into this car for fuel, and he's given me a check for more money than what I would at a national event. And I had to pay for all my own stuff. It's like, well, this math is going to work pretty good for John.
All of a sudden, it didn't suck.
Yeah. Well, but then the pressure came, you know,
Right.
You know, with him having the reputation of firing drivers on the spot, which was not really true. You know, that was just the stigma that he had. He was really a pretty good boss, driving for 3.5 years.
You drove a long time for him.
Yeah. I think I have the Ironman pin for him as a hired driver that didn't bring any money to the table.
And is it true the reason why that he never drove his own cars is because his mom said you can't drive? We cut you off if you drive your own car. So
no, they couldn't build a seat tall enough to where you could see out of the car.
You're kidding me.
He's still short. He's only 4'8".
Yeah. Okay. So that's why he said, okay, we'll put somebody else.
I don't know. You know, he was just better as an owner and crew chief back then.
And definitely the personality of the car.
Yeah. It was definitely the Hawaiian.
So when you went back to Hawaii that first time, was it like a hero's welcome for him to come home and race it? Or?
Yeah. Well, he owned Oahu. You know, his family was big back there, and he had some reputation.
So you went along, you raced with him for 3.5 years, and then
I just decided I just need to put my own stuff back together and go racing on my own again.
But you learned some stuff.
Yeah, you know, you get guys like Joe Pierce when you first started out racing. He said, I can't teach you what to do or tell you what to do, but I'll tell you what not to do, because my stuff's always on fire. So I know what not to do. Well, with Roland, pretty much learned what not to do to make a car run. You know, he's brutal to it. He didn't, you know, he wanted to win at any cost. And that was, you know, I just can't survive like that.
I would say that this is coming as a spectator, you know, not that I was in the know, but it seemed to me a lot of times that you go out and you'd be number 1, number 2, number 3 qualifier, and then he tuned it.
We fixed it.
He fixed it. And that had to be kind of a different deal.
Yeah, that's tough to, you know, you got the race in your hands and you have the opportunity to win it. And, you know, we went to a lot of final rounds, probably finished 5th every year, but that just wasn't enough for me.
Okay. You wanted the hardware.
Well, you know, when you get there, you get a taste of what it's like to win. You just don't want to give that up. You don't want to go there and just be another also-ran.
So you went back racing your own team. And how long were you doing that for?
Oh shoot, I don't, you know, driving again. I probably drove till the late 90s. And then there came the opportunity where people wanted to bring their sponsor and drive. And I thought, this is a no-brainer. As long as they can drive and I get paid and we can run my own stuff, that's where we're going to go. Had Paula drive for a while, had Hartman drive for a while, even Whit Bazemore. And actually, for me, it's more rewarding to make the car run. I don't really care about driving that much. It's just survival.
I was going to ask you that. One of the things I've been down the drag strip in a dragster, not nearly as fast as you have. Enjoyed it, but I much more enjoyed the thought path between the race, the rounds, trying to make it go quicker, try to troubleshoot stuff.
Right, making the car run. That's my deal.
So that you like the mind part of it a lot.
Right. The driving part just never really done that much for me. I mean, right now, it gets your attention. You know, like my wife said, you haven't driven it all this century, and now you're going to go out there and make.
You got your own team back together. You had other people drive for you, and then during the period of time, and we know where you're at now. We're going to get to that, but you did some crew chiefing for other people along the way. Some more, you know, you got to learn from some people. They learned from you. I know you were brought in as or hired to be on a Snap-on car to be more like the process or the operations manager to make sure things,
Yeah, the car chief. And that's just making everything work right. Working for guys like Cruz or even Schumacher, that's hardball there with Schumacher. Even though we went out with Beckman's car, we'd won five or six national events that year. It's just a different atmosphere, and you got paid really well, but you got beat up a lot too. And it just at the end of every qualifying lap, you were under the gun. You had to perform. Well, with Schumacher, he's got 7 cars. There's only 2 categories. How can you be the best out of every run when there's 7 other guys out of his stable running? He would come and give you the pep talk and beat the hell out of you. The run sheets, times we were there, the very bottom of the run sheet. And what he just didn't understand is that we're out here to try and do the best we can. We're not trying to run crappy.
Right.
And he'd walk in and he'd take a look at that sheet and throw it back down on the desk there and say, you guys suck. Well, Don, come back here. Look at this. What do you see there? All of our numbers are on the bottom of this sheet. Yeah, that's what I said. You guys suck. No, what you don't see is that we suck the best.
You can do it really well.
Yeah.
I was at U.S. Nationals the last time I went. I was fortunate enough to be invited to a suite. A friend of mine owned half of it, and it turned out he owned the other half of it. And I've always been more of the Force fan than the Schumacher fan, only because back to that Pepsi and Coke thing, okay? And all his top fuel cars went out first round.
Yeah.
He came to the suite, okay, and he's sitting by me, and the cameras panned to him, and also my cell phone blows up saying, "Hey, we just saw you on ESPN, man. Look at the and I'm wearing Force blue, and everybody else is in Schumacher red." But I did have a chance to talk to him, and because I was at Orange County when he first did that first 6-second pass on the West Coast, and that was a big deal. And the driver in him came out. He was like, his eyes all sparkled up,
yeah.
And I know he's a very competitive guy, but you learn from him.
Oh yeah, I mean there is no second best.
Each car's its own business
yeah.
unit,
and he gave you everything you wanted. He never scrimped on anything. It was always a money issue, but our cars were never lacking for parts. There was never going to be an excuse, well, we couldn't make a good run because we needed something.
And Beckman definitely was a passionate driver.
Yeah, he's excellent. He knew the car. He could come back and tell you, you know, there's something wrong. It feels like something happened in the valve train. You know, I could just feel it stutter. You come back and you'd see a broken adjuster.
You nailed it.
And just, yeah. Kid was good. Guy was good.
Yeah. So you went on to that, and then you did some crew chiefing, car chiefing for Terry Haddock.
Yeah.
And while that team was definitely another budgeted team, and it had its direction, as a fan and a spectator, you did that team a lot of good. You got it. You know, you just driving over fewer parts, and then Jerry was a lot happier, less oil downs.
Yeah.
And your passion was there. And what I'm going to that with is that I've seen you over the years mentor people. You know, we've interviewed other people, and every interview we've done today, your name came up. And
only because I paid them to do that.
Yeah, you paid them. Your PR team's working really well, but that's an earned respect. You know, I know of other people you're mentoring now, and other people. I'm a good friend with a fuel alter and his son. You're a big part of that, and it's got to feel real good to when you have people listen to you. And
well, yeah, but it's just more of it's an act of survival to where, you know, you don't want to see a guy like Little John go out there and not run good. Mm-hmm. His dad was really instrumental in my whole bringing up. You know, he was the guy that I wanted to impress. So how can you turn your back to that man? Even his son now wants to go racing. You can't turn your back to him, you know, and
right.
If they need help, give it to them. It's not like it's going to cost you anything. And if they go out and they beat me, more power to them.
The tribal knowledge, we talk about the term tribal knowledge, and that's basically the things you've gathered over along the way that by sharing with other people save them the heartbreak of making mistakes. And the tribal knowledge bombs in the right place make a big difference, and you've done that for a lot of people.
Well, you're just telling them stuff that they need to know that will help protect them. You don't want to get them in trouble. And there's certain rules that you got to apply in fuel racing that if you don't, it's going to be disastrous. But there again, you just tell them stuff that they need to know, but don't tell them everything that you want to know.
You control the knowledge. Don't tell them too much.
Yeah.
They might come back and beat you someday, right?
But if they do, that's great.
It's got to make you feel good. This one thing I love about drag racing, though, is the stories of people helping the competitors out. And it's generally wide open. I had the story about Warren Coburn being interviewed about his biggest regret in drag racing, and he said it was letting Garlis us out of slicks at Indy and losing to him in the final round. Right. You know, but in the fun of it, but he would have done it anyways.
Yeah, that's just it. You know, you don't want to. You got to help people. You
right.
got to. Otherwise, it's not a fair race.
So here we are cruising along. Life is good. You got your machine biz, your Wesco fabrication. You're busier than heck. Build a new building for it. Everything's going great. And somehow you got this wild hair that you want to go altered racing again.
Yeah. Mike Throckmorton, the guy that's been with me for probably 10 years now, he just comes to the shop and he just wants to be a part of racing, you know, and he's got a car back east that he's involved with, and just started talking to me and wanting more information, and then he asked if I'd be interested in building the Plan A fuel altered again. You know, I thought, well, I've already thrown away all my blueprints. I said I'd never build another race car again, but then we went ahead and built it, and we're having a ball with it.
Your memory seemed to be pretty good, even though you didn't have the hard prints, because it's like it's there in your head. Yeah. You've done really well with your racing the 6.0 fuel alters.
Yeah.
You had your Bakersfield looked really good this year. You definitely qualified well. It's a whole different thing of I got to slow this car down now a little bit.
Well, not really. No, it's designed to run in that 6 flat category, right at 230 miles an hour. It's still a handful because I don't like to have a lot of wing on it. You know, make it look like the classic type 1980s fuel altered. And it's a lot of fun to drive. It's a car that it's real light to drive. You know, you got to stay awake. It keeps you honest.
You just came back from Boise. You had a good time up there. It looked like #1 qualifier.
Yeah, we qualified low, and then Sunday the car just wasn't right. It didn't act right. There's something wrong. I haven't even unloaded it yet. We're front halfing a car right now for a guy that crashed in Bakersfield, ran into the sand barrels, so I'm front halfing it. So we haven't even had time to unload the car and try and figure out what's wrong. But
So
there's something really missing.
it's not worth attention, right? You're still mad at it, right?
Well,
You'll have a relationship with it later.
I mean, I had 1,000 miles to sit there and think about what's the ifs, what happened. I haven't put my finger on it because I even took the clutch out of the car down there and can't.
So Boise's a great track for the sportsman people, the pro people, the new family. You know, supports racing.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Boise's still relatively a small town, but they have a major league facility there.
That's an awesome town. Yeah. We love it.
Your interview, they interviewed you, and you talked about. They asked you about. I'm going to ask you to tell the story again about how did the Plan A name come about?
Yeah. That was with Jim and I both wanting to get into a fuel car. So we were shopping around to find a chassis that we could deal with. He wanted to have funny car. I really wanted to have altered again. And then a dragster would be a third choice. So obviously with his original thought, the funny car was his Plan A. But, you know, so we found the altered and we housed that over at my place, and it just seemed to be a natural. Well, that was my original thought, so let's just call this the Plan A.
So today in 2021, the new Plan A is alive and well, and you're having a good time racing.
Yeah. It's just my wife, Mike, and myself basically running the car. You know, the biggest thing for me in driving the car again was after I did the burnout backup, and Joette not only starts the car, she runs the gas bottle, starts the car, but having her directly involved and right there in front of me, bringing me up to the starting line, that's big. That's really big in my eyes, is having her involved with the car.
So Paula Martin talked about the trust in a good crew chief. She is really, when you're in the car, she's your crew chief.
Yeah, and she's aware of everything that's going on, and that's a big part of it. I can read her, you know, and she's even got to tell me to do stuff in the car to remind me. You know, the first run I made, I thought, I don't remember looking down at the oil pressure. I don't know if I even have any. You know, we're running the car without any kind of a data logger, so everything's just going off of memory. You know, so she wanted to remind me, you know, look down, make sure you got oil pressure. You know, and the next run, I got out about 300 foot and couldn't see. There's just stuff in my eyes. And my eyes are watering over, and I'm thinking, well, it's not fuel because I'm used to this, you know. Then it dawns on me I didn't put my visor down. Oh, that's pretty stupid, but don't reach up and pull it down now. You're going to lose your hand, you know. So now she reminds me about that. But she's staying, you know, she lives the car. You know, she understands it, and she's right there with it. You can't ask for anything better in life.
Got your best interest at heart, too.
Yeah.
So your car has no data logger on it?
No.
So it's definitely old school?
Well, it's just, there again, I don't have the $10,000 to invest in.
Oh, okay. Well, it makes me feel better about not having one on my car.
Yeah, and that's sometimes too much information, you know, will hurt you. You need to learn how to run these things without that. I
agree. And, you know, Johnny, I've known you for a long time. We have all known you for a long time. And in Arizona, you're one of the guys. I don't think people can think of a drag racer for anybody, Arizona and their drag race without your name coming up in conversation. And we really appreciate all you've done a lot for a lot of people.
Well, it goes both ways. You know, it's not like I did this all on my own. There's been almost everybody that I'm surrounded with has brought me something, you know, given me something, and you know, and you got to remember that.
That's what drag racing's really about.
You know, my older brother was really, he was the one who's probably the one to blame to get me into drag racing, but he's not the one that kept me drag racing. The family that I want to call family, you know, Tanis, Thompson, Alleman, Stewart, they were all parts that made you want to keep racing. This livelihood, this is a vocation. This is you couldn't ask for a better life. And with these people that when they genuinely care about you and help you, you got to pass that on. And that's, to me, that's family. That's the whole thing about it.
That's a fantastic attitude, Johnny. We really appreciate it. Thank you again for being here today. I know that you get a big smile on your face when we call you a legend, but you were a legend long before
I'm just
we came up with the name.
just a survivalist.
Well,
That's all there is to
You're the legend of the survivalist. Johnny West, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your time.